So, good evening, everybody. I don't know what got into me there at the end of the meditation. I want to see if I can get back on that wave and surf. Um, I was talking about your birthright. I've liked that word lately. It's a way to talk about our nature, what we were born as distinct from all the conditioning that accrues. And I'm fully open that there may be conditioning coming from other lives. That's also just conditioning, but our birthright as sensitive, intelligent, honest, awake, so easily covered over. It just feels good to acknowledge it. I don't feel I'm saying something you don't, on some level of your being, already know. But maybe nobody welcomed it for you. Maybe nobody blessed it for you. The sensitivity that you are. That's one of the things that got cursed in my early life, was sensitivity. Maybe some of you had a similar experience. In the famous phrase, "You're too sensitive." When somebody's being cruel, someone's being mean, someone's perpetuating the whole system of domination that we call society, and it hits you as a young being, a young, sensitive system. And your reaction to it makes somebody uncomfortable, and they make you the default for it. You're too sensitive. So let me be the one to say, you're sensitive. You're all sensitive. It is your birthright. This incredible human system. And humans can't take it all. I mean, I'm around our dog, and I notice how sensitive she is, sometimes more sensitive because her thoughts are in the way. But we are like that. We are this openness upon experience, and things touch us. And we know them, and we're curious about them, and we explore them, and we are emotionally moved by them. And somehow or another, we get the idea we're supposed to shut all that down so we can be the way we're supposed to be. Half dead. Rational. In a very limited sense. I'm all for reason, by the way. I have nothing against reasoning. But what's often called rational it's part of the semi-numb, shut down, up in the head, viewing everything through one's ideas world that we are brought into, we are socialized into. So just even approaching meditation with a welcome and a blessing to your sensitivity could be very helpful. Something inside of us hears that. Something inside of us responds. That's why I use that sort of language, because I found it effective with myself. Of like, hey, in there, anybody want to come out? That's been cowering. And somehow our honesty too goes by the wayside. There's so much dishonesty to social conditioning, pretending, wanting to look a certain way in the outside that we're not on the inside. Um, being policed in various ways. You know, and having been a parent, I shudder to admit, I'm sure I've done my share of policing, of anxious policing of young beings so that they somehow fit in. I'm not sure it's completely avoidable. So forgive yourself for that. But at least now, at this point that you've come to actually take a class, a meditation class, maybe you didn't know what you were getting into, but it is a step toward reclaiming this birthright of sensitivity. This is a little bit of a digression, but one of the things that's, I think, so helpful about Buddhism and about, you know, when you get the whole system, is there's an emphasis on what's called sila. It usually gets translated as morality, but I prefer something more like integrity or moral integrity, because somehow the word morality in English, it has that be the way you're supposed to be feeling about it, that heavy judgment from outside. Whereas, you know, sila is talking about, first of all, training precepts, you know, things to take on to resensitize you to your relationship to other beings and to live with integrity. And the reason this is offered is because we are such sensitive beings, and because entering on a meditative path is likely to make us more sensitive. And in becoming more sensitive, we will be more sensitive to the dissonance, the inner dissonance, when we lack integrity, when we do something harmful to another person, something harsh, when we inflict on them our agenda, even our complaints, even in a certain way, our needs. Sometimes we inflict that on people, we demand something. There's a way that if you're entering into a meditative path, you notice more of the disturbance that causes. You have to clean up your act. You may know this disturbance of certain things you do, whether it's watch TV or consume alcohol or other drugs. There's a kind of an avoidance, a sadness, a numbness. It's there to be noticed, not to be blamed, not to be criticized, but to be awakened to, and to gradually clean things up a little. It'll feel better. We've talked in this class and in previous classes about wholesome and unwholesome. One can begin to track that in your experience. And so coming to live more in a more wholesome way, coming to attune to wholesomeness, is part of reclaiming one's sensitivity and truthfulness as a being. Though this time around, unlike being a small child, there is greater possibility for containment of one's energies. You know, it's spilling out all over the place like children are in their honesty. There's a maturity, there's a grounding, there's a tempering, there's all sorts of things that happen in adult that don't happen in children, but that fundamental kind of sensitive honesty of a being, coming back into that and loving that, seeing that as like a precious jewel not some idea of morality laid on top of us, not some idea of the way good people are, or the way good Buddhists are, how they behave, and I better be like that so I can think good thoughts about myself. None of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something far deeper and organic that feels genuinely good. Coming into wholesomeness feels genuinely good. And it doesn't need any outside police. It doesn't need someone monitoring you. It doesn't actually even need that inside, that inner police of self-criticism, self-judgment. It's just the internalized version of the outside stuff, really. So when you notice that, that's not the call of wholesomeness. But see if you can, by actually being embodied, part of why we do the body scan is to be embodied. And the reason for doing that is the body is such a sensitive instrument and it's so honest and it holds so many things. And in order for us to go unconscious about who we are and what we do, we have to tense the body. The body is involved intimately in our going unconscious and becoming numb. So part of why we do the body scan, part of why we really feel and receive the body is to wake up again. And the good news is it's actually waking up to good feeling. Sometimes there's not good feeling in the body. Sometimes there's holding tension. And that's also something to be welcomed because it's pointing to a place where one is holding on in some way. And one is suppressing. One is going unconscious. I don't know that I'm speaking here of normal aches and pains. I'm talking more about energetic kinds of things that we find in our body, though they can manifest physically. I don't want to become too literal about this for you creaky old people, of which I'm quickly becoming a, a candidate for that. So birthright. Part of being our birthright is to come into a self-regulating system. Self-regulating. I'm not sure exactly what the self word refers to, but it's important. It refers to it not being someone else regulating us. It's a little more like the light of awareness regulating us, light of presence, which I also mentioned in the meditation. And I spoke of it in the sense of something vast, something infinite, which one can feel, even though it's unknowable. There's some way with the very light with which we know experience goes beyond us, goes beyond our identities, goes beyond self. And that's our birthright too. And by noticing it and relaxing into it, perhaps only for an instant, you might experience something of what in Buddhism is talked about as not taking rebirth. What's meant by that, there's this meaning that's often understood of literal births in other lifetimes, which might be true. However, the most profound meaning of it is immediate. That when we fall asleep into some limited identity, mistake ourselves in some way for a limited feeling, a limited thought or perception, or even the body. We take birth in that moment. That's taking birth. And so if you read the suttas, and there's always people getting enlightened in those suttas. And what they often say is something like, there's no more birth for me. Birth has ended. They're not talking about the future. They're talking about their current experience, that in some way they are here in this world no longer as the limitation of a personal self. That'll bend your mind if you try to think about it. So I don't actually recommend you try to think about it. I recommend that you, in your meditation, float that word in, vast, infinite, and see if you feel what I'm talking about. See if you can notice what has no limit right in the noticing of things. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Open it up for questions, comments.